Hello and welcome back. In this video I'm going to be talking about one of, in my opinion, the most interesting battles of the Second World War. The year is 1945. The war has been raging for years. Millions have already been killed and even more have had their lives drastically changed. In spite of this, the end is in sight. The Allied forces have pushed the Nazi advance all the way back to their doorstep. However, there is still fierce resistance from the fanatical remains of the Third Reich. The events that are going to be discussed in this video take place in May 1945, in the recently independent nation of Austria. Here lies the castle of Itter, which in 1943 had been seized by the German government and transformed into a prison for valuable hostages under the administration of Dachau, which was situated 143 kilometers away. The castle housed predominantly high-ranking and affluent people from France who had fallen into disfavor with the Third Reich. Those housed within the prison ranged from former French premiers like Edouard Daladier and Paul Renaud, to a world-renowned tennis player in Jean Barotra. The group was held for their potential bargaining power to the Allied nations, and thus were treated marginally better than at their sister camp in Dachau. They were fed 3 times a day and were allowed to roam the camp freely. This sense of safety, however, would be degraded, as it became more and more apparent that Germany was losing the war. The prisoners began to fear that when the SS guards fled the camp that they would execute them before leaving. This notion became more and more likely when the commandant of Dachau arrived at the castle after fleeing American liberators. The man would only stay for a short period of time before killing himself on the 2nd of May 1945. The situation was becoming dire as it became evident that the guards at Itter were preparing to leave themselves. When the day came, however, the guards simply took what they could and left. This at the time seemed like a blessing to the prisoners, however they now faced a larger problem. They were trapped in a castle in a forest surrounded by the SS. The prisoners believed it was only a matter of time until the SS stormed the castle and killed them, so they devised a plan. They would send volunteers on bikes to sneak past the hostile forces in hopes that they would find allies who would be willing to attempt a rescue mission. The first man that left on his bike was a Croatian man by the name of Zvonimir Kuchkovic. Kuchkovic would manage to navigate through the hostile terrain and would eventually run into American lines. Here he would meet and explain the situation of the trapped prisoners. He would be told that the prison was outside of the jurisdiction of the American forces. However, a man by the name of Major John T. Kramers would disregard this order and would later dispatch a rescue detachment. The second cyclist dispatched by the prisoners in Castle Itter was a man named Andreas Krobot. With incredible luck, he too would not face enemy resistance on his way through the forest, and would eventually cross paths with a Wehrmacht major named Sepp Gangl. Gangl at this point in the war had become disillusioned with the Nazi ideology, and was leading a group of like-minded subordinates. When he had heard the plight of those in the castle, he immediately contacted the Americans, and was able to speak to a US tank commander by the name of Captain Jack Lee. Gangl and Lee would together plan an operation to free the trapped prisoners, and would even accompany one another to scout the castle. On May 5th, 1945, the first ever joint operation between the Wehrmacht and the Allied forces would take place. Together, the US and German forces would set up a line of defense around the castle, with the prisoners taking up small arms left behind by the guards. Together, they would all wait for the expected SS attack. They would not be disappointed, as after some time had passed, thousands of rounds of ammunition would fire into the direction of Itter. The strange amalgamation of German, American and French allies would begin to fire back. The fighting would be brutal, with neither side showing any signs of slowing down. At some point the SS would even manage to disable Commander Lee's tank. It was getting desperate for the defenders, and all hope was seemingly being lost, until, in the distance, the sound of tanks could be heard. This column of US steel sent by Kramers smashed the attacking SS. Many would try to flee, and many would be captured. Either way, it made no difference. The day was won, and the prisoners were free. Not everything was happy though. One of the soldiers who was defending Castle Itter had been struck by a sniper and died. That man was Major Sepp Gangl. He had fought valiantly alongside men whom he had called his enemies only months prior. He had laid down his life in the defense of others, and for his sacrifice was immortalized by having a street named after him in the area. Lee, for his service, was awarded the Distinguished Service Star. Only 2 days after this battle, Nazi Germany would surrender unconditionally to the Allied forces on the 7th of May 1945. This story to me is so much more than just another battle in a war that seemingly had nothing but battles. It is a story of enemies coming together to fight for what was right, to sacrifice their lives side by side in order to save a group of men who were foreign to them both. It demonstrated that there could be a future where Germany worked together with the rest of the world, and not against them. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you stick around for the next one. Until then, goodbye.